Hello, I'm Pam, and this is my channel, Made by Pam. And today, I'm participating in the 5 questions, 1 take tag from that Lindsay from Inside the Hem has written these questions and asked that we participate for the month of October. I'm part of a sewing YouTube group in Facebook. And so, the first question. So I wrote these down just so I kind of had like an outline of what the questions were and kind of the key points I wanted to hit so that I don't get like too off topic. Because I will. I can guarantee that. Okay. So, what has your sewing journey look like? So basically, when did you start sewing? Who taught you to sew? Was there any breaks and etc.? So, I started sewing when I was quite young. I remember doing like a 4-H project when I was little, and I made a reversible skirt. Yeah, it was like a light pink on one side and a dark pink on the other. And I tried making it, and my mom was like, "Who's ever gonna wear that?" I'm like, "A baby." She's like, "What child?" Like, "I don't know. My sister? Maybe a doll?" She's like, "That's not gonna fit." Like, fine. So it was probably for a doll, and I still have it just because, but I don't know exactly where I put it, but I do still have it. It's somewhere around here because I do hold on to things. Yeah. And then I did make like a little tote bag type thing, like a little bag that I put some doll clothes and stuff, because I had Barbie dolls. Well, I still have Barbie dolls. They're in a tote, and all the little stuff is in there. I think at one time I even thought, well, I think I did for a little bit, like stitch some Barbie doll clothes when I was little. But that was short-lived. And then when I got a little bit older, I was in junior high, and I had a paper out when I was like 7th grade, and I had friends. Yeah, I had friends. Go figure. So I was headed back home from doing my paper out, and I went by a yard sale, and they had these like the sample pieces of fabric that they use for like upholstery businesses and stuff. Well, they had these little like squares of fabric, and they had like these packets, so it had so many per packet, and some of them were different sizes. Well, they had a whole bunch of those, and one of the yard sale was like one of my childhood friends was also running this yard sale. It was like her parents that were having it, and I remember seeing this fabric when I was in junior high, and I'm like, "Oh, that is so cool." And I had to get it all. Yeah, I had to buy that fabric. I don't quite remember how much it cost me, but I had to get it. And then they also had like the embroidery thread, like strings and strands and stuff. I think they had a spool of it or whatever. And back then, you have like 8 strands per, like 8 thin strands of thread per embroidery strand. keep thinking they're going to interrupt me again. And I took that whole like big chunk of strand and put it in a needle, and I started stitching these squares of fabric together. And obviously some of it I didn't leave enough seam allowance because it eventually went through and didn't turn out the greatest. But that was my like first like big project. So I sewed those together, and then one time I went over to a friend's house. Well, it was more I babysat for some kids, for like an older couple. Well, I guess they weren't older. I considered them my friends. I guess, I don't know how old they were. But they had, their oldest was maybe 5-6 years younger than me. So it wasn't that much. But she had a couple of kids. And I used to go over and babysit for her. And, yeah, this is going to turn out to be a long video because I'm still on my first question. But so I had gone over and I'd taken these things, and I was telling her about it. So I took some of these things over there to show her. She's like, well, it would be much easier if you had a sewing machine. I'm like, well, my mom's sewing machine doesn't work. And I really don't know how to make it work right. She's like, well, just bring your stuff over here and you can use my sewing machine. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah. And so she gave me the run through of how to use it and stuff. And so I started stitching those things together, those squares of fabric together. And then I thought, I'm like, well, should I stitch over what I've already stitched, like the hand stitching? She's like, it's up to you. Yeah. I decided, oh, well, this should be good enough. And I didn't stitch over the hand stitching. And so later, some of that came out. And I've had to, like, do some repairs over the years. Yeah. But even some of the sewing machine stitches, the seam allowance on those wasn't, it was too little that some of the fabric had, like, separated. Yeah. Alright. So I went over there and I would sew these pieces together. And then it came time to, like, quilt it. Like, to, like, get the backing. And so I went to, it was probably Joann's that I probably got that quilt backing from. Yeah, it was a long time ago. But yeah, I went and I got the fabric, and I got enough so that, because they used to not have like the extra wide ones, I couldn't find any extra wide ones, so I got like the wide, but then I put them next to each other, so like 2 lengths of fabric next to each other, and then combined it all together, and then eventually like sewed the edging on. And that I tried using an invisible thread to sew the edging on. That didn't work out the greatest. I probably really didn't know what I was doing. I was just thinking, oh, this is going to be great. Yeah, later I think I've had to redo half of that too. But, so, basically, she had a friend, like an older lady friend. She was like an old grandma, like probably in her 70s or 80s, I don't know. But we went over to her house, and so I would go over to her house quite regularly so I could, like, tie this quilt. So we'd put the thread, well, the yarn through with the yarn needle, and we would pull it through and we'd tie it. And she showed me how to do that, and she had like this cool quilting frame, basically like what I use now. But hers was like, I think it had like a hinge so it would fold out, and it would just, it's more fancy. But I went over there and tied that quilt until it was done. And that was fun. And then I put the edging around it. Yeah. So that was when I was in junior high, and then, like, that was the beginning of junior high, like 7th grade. 7th or 8th grade. And then 9th grade, they did, like, a TLC, like, the home ec program. And we did the sewing with that program, and I made a pillowcase. I remember I found this fabric that I really liked. It was like a green Christmas fabric with, like, ornaments and stuff on it. And my teacher was like, that's quite not going to work. I'm like, yeah, it will. If I turn it this way and this way, it'll work. I made it work. And I had that for the longest time. I don't remember if I still have that or not. I might, just because it was that memorable. I do still have the little purse bag that I made. And looking back at that, I'm like, you know, that could have been so much better. It was not the right type of fabric, not the right kind of construction or anything. But, you know, I passed the class and I got an... At least I finished it, right? I still have the pattern too. I have it somewhere. I'm sure it's probably in my pattern drawer with all my other patterns, probably in the craft ones in the bottom. Yeah, but I still have that pattern. And I've never made that pattern again. It's like a purse pattern, and those purses will look very nice. But I've only made one out of it, and that was when I was in 9th grade. And then when I was in high school, I think I was like 12th grade. I'm pretty sure. Because, so I was in 12th grade. I was a senior. And I had a friend that she had ended up getting pregnant. Like a classmate. And she was going to have a baby. And I said, you know what? I want to make this friend a blanket. A baby blanket for her baby. And so I made her a baby blanket. And then my neighbor, she was pregnant. And so I made them a blanket and gave it to them as a gift. And then it just kind of went on from there. I made more and more blankets and gave them away as gifts because it's what I did. And then, like, for Christmases and stuff, I made blankets and gave them as Christmas presents for the longest time. And then, he's my ex now, but one year he did work hard and he made me a quilting frame. I still have that quilting frame just because, you know, it's mine. And it was quite a brilliant idea. And so I still have it. I still use it. But I used it and I would tie these quilts. And like when I lived in an apartment, I would put it out in my front room. And I would I had enough room to set it up that I would tie these quilts. And I had made a couple and, you know, given them away and stuff for friends and family. And then, and I took pictures of most of the quilts that I made. But then I kind of narrowed out a little bit for a while. Just things, life happens, you know? And then later, I think when I had he's now 11, but I think after I had him, and I had my mom living with me.
Mom, they're trying to say they mope on me.
Uh-oh. I'm sorry, sweet girl. So after...
I told them that you're not allowed to tell anything from anyone.
Okay, later, okay?
Okay.
You go behave yourself.
Mom, nobody else to tilt her.
Yeah, it's not fun, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, go out and close my door. So I tell you, I get interruptions. And she's playing with my door. So when I was in high school, I did decide that I needed to get a sewing machine. That's how I started sewing all these quilts. Is because I had a car and I worked and my car had blown like a head gasket or whatever, or a piston, I don't know. It had just broken down because I forgot to put oil in it. Go figure. And it came this time where I was like, okay, what do I do? Do I buy a new engine for the car? Or do I buy a sewing machine? Well, obviously, the sewing machine won out. I actually have that sewing machine. It's sitting right here on my table because I still use it. Funny enough, huh? So this is my sewing machine. It's a Brother XL3025. Yeah, you can see I still have some of the little film plastics on, and I could take those off, but why? I don't mind having them on there. So I decided I would buy a sewing machine, and that's what I did. And then I continue to use it throughout the years, and obviously I still use it. It's like my most used machine. I like my other machines too, but that one, it holds a special place. Okay. So when I had my now 11-year-old, he was like a year and a half, 2 years old, and I think I was pregnant with my 9-year-old at the time. And I was talking to my mom, and I was like, you know what? I think I would really like to sew clothes. She's like, well, why don't you? I'm like, well, I don't know. The patterns, they just kind of elude me. They just kind of like go over my head. It's confusing and I don't quite understand. She's like, what's confusing about it? I don't know. I just don't get it. So she sat down with me. I got a pattern. And that time I picked up a couple of patterns. Just had them in like a little like tote box type thing. You know, one of those like paper like file boxes. And it had a handle. And that my pattern storage just used to fit in this small little box. Yeah. Now I got this huge collection of patterns. Yeah. So she was like, well, I will teach you. I'm like, really? Awesome. So we got a pattern, like an easy pattern. I think first one we started out with was like a pair of pants. And so we got out the pattern, and she told me like what each of the things meant and explained it all to me and explained the importance of following the grain line and lining things up and stuff so that things didn't look weird. And so she showed me how to do that. Yeah, I'm still on question 1. My stories can go on forever. So she showed me how to do that. And then I decided, I think also when I was pregnant with my 9-year-old, I decided I was going to sew a shirt for myself. I'm pretty sure that was that same time. That was one of the first patterns. It was a Kala Ali like pattern a simplicity pattern. And I think it was mostly meant, hold on 1 second while I close my door. Sorry, my daughter decided she was going to leave it open. They're watching like Minecraft stuff upstairs, and it was kind of loud. Okay. So she showed me how to use the patterns, and I sewed myself a shirt, and I didn't quite know about like the reading the body measurements of the pattern exactly. I was just like, oh, well, I'm this size, like, and so this size on the pattern should fit me. Not really. It doesn't work like that. And I guess it said you could use wovens for it, which I did. I used like this really pretty fabric. I still have the shirt that I made. I still wear it sometimes because it's like one of my favorites. I could never like duplicate. Well, maybe I could duplicate it, but I don't know if I'd want to. So it's supposed to be like where you could just slip it over. You wouldn't have to worry too much about, you know, like zippers or anything. And so, well, I make it out of this, like, it frays a lot. And so I tried, like, kind of hiding some of the seams. Kind of like a French hem type seam. Is that what you call it? Yeah. And, I made it, and I added a zipper on the back so it would be easier to get on and off, and then like a little like button loop tie on the back. And then on the front, I put it up enough so it was modest, and then I added little buttons down the front just for decorative because I just thought that would just be the cutest thing. And then I decided, well, I want it to look pretty. So, and I didn't like the wide open sleeves, so I added little elastic around the sleeves, and then I added little elastic around like underneath the bust, and then I added elastic along the hemline. And I mostly wore that when I was pregnant. First couple little bit of when I was pregnant, and I thought that was great. And then I sewed some dresses for my daughter. And actually, we still have one of those dresses. It was like one of my first dresses that I sewed, and that I sewed for my daughter when she was like 8. Yeah. So I still have that, and now I have a 7-year-old. So yeah, it's been a while. That 8-year-old is now 19. So it's been like 11 years since I started sewing clothes. Like, well, more like maybe 12 years. Yeah. Has it been that long? Alright. I'm getting off topic here. Okay, so, when I took I did have little breaks. So for a while there, I kind of, every once in a while, would get out the sewing machine and the fabric and stitch something up and stuff. And then when she's 7 now, but when she was in Head Start, so she went to preschool, I offered the class that I would make them like all like little name tags. And I actually have some of those little name tag pieces sitting up here. Let me go ahead and see if I can grab it. It's not in that one. I know they're in this tote up here. I should be more prepared, huh? Okay. I found one of them. So I have this like little like Pellon like. It's like this thick craft fuse stuff that's got the double fuse on both sides, and then I would take some fabric and fuse it on each side, and then I took my machine and I stitched the fabric all the way around, and it's kind of like a serging stitch, because I didn't have a serger, but I had a machine that had the serging knife and the serging stitch that would go around and kind of trim off as you're sewing. Yeah. So I remember I made a couple, and then I would use my little rivet thing, and I would put like little rivets on the top so that the teachers could take it, and these would last like all year, and they could take and put it on the backs of the students with the different fabrics on it and stitched around so that they would last most of the year. So I did that and donated them to the class, which they were grateful for. And one of the parents was like, "Oh, you sew?" I'm like, "Yes, I do." It's like, "Oh, that is so awesome. I've been looking for a friend that can sew. I have all these awesome ideas." And so she's like, "Well, can you make me a Halloween costume for my little boy?" No, I think it was her grandson. But she wanted like a little Peter Pan hat type thing. And I did that. And she'd also asked for some aprons. And she'd like gotten all these fabrics. I'm like, "Where are you getting all these from?" It's like, "Well, there's these thrift stores. You know, you've got DI, which is Desert Industries, because I live in Utah. It's a thrift store. And then there is Savers, which is also in other places called Value Village. And then there's Goodwill. And most people know about Goodwill." And she would just, you know, talk about, like, say that she would go to Goodwill. And so she showed me where these places, well, I knew where Savers was. I knew where DI was. I hadn't ever really been to Goodwill. And so we went to Goodwill together a couple times. But that got me hooked. And so that's probably why I have a bazillion pieces of fabric. But so I got started on my sewing journey again. So I had my little, he's 4 now. Oh yeah. It was, you know, when we became friends after he was born. Yeah, I think so. Anyways, we became friends, and I sewed up like a whole bunch of aprons for her family. And then I had like a reading literacy person coming, and she's like, "Oh, I would love some aprons." And so I sewed some aprons for her family, and it really got me back into sewing and got me like, so I had my sewing stuff. So let's go ahead and skip to question 2 here, okay, since I've talked all about that. And I have probably covered, like, even possibly, well, no. Oh, let's go to question 2. It says, describe your sewing space, where it is. Is it shared? Is it private? Is it messy? Is it clean? Okay. So I started out upstairs in my living room. So, we had a living room, and I got a table, like, for my sister. And I even had these, like, little fold-up tables I even sewed on for a little while. But I kind of, like, started taking over the living room. So I had fabrics in the cabinets, and, like, the bins of fabric that I set on, like, the little window seat. I just kind of piled it up all over the living room. Yeah, I bet my husband wasn't happy about that. I'm sure he's much happier that I'm downstairs. But I did that for a while. And then my son moved out. He had turned 18. He graduated, and he decided that he wanted to live with his dad. And so he moved out. And then he joined the Navy. And so I said, well, he's not coming back home. So what did that mean? That meant I took over the basement. Because he was down here for a while. Because he was a teenager. And teenagers like their own space sometimes. Well, since he moved out, I'm like, alright. So I took over the basement. And at that time, I was contemplating starting my YouTube channel. So basically, the whole basement. So back there, there's a door. I guess I could show you. Nah. Yeah, I will. Okay. Well, let me open up my curtain here. I have this to help prevent, like, the extra lights. See that mirror back there? It's hooked up to a door. And back there is the furnace room. Yeah. And then back over there, there's another door. That is like another storage room. Which it has like our food storage in. And then it has my hordes of fabric storage. So my ceiling is like 6 feet. So I can stand up and touch the ceiling. It's only 6 feet distance, so it is a low ceiling, which works out fine, no big deal. So it makes it easy to put up my curtain. As you can see, I have like little command hook things up there that I spin all around. And then that fake light right there, that used to work. But I added these extra lights because I needed extra light. And I got tired of having to go flip on like a million switches just to have it bright in here. And so I'd ended up detaching that light, which I could have left it attached and just worked on and gotten all these done. But, you know, hindsight, you do what you do. So basically, the basement's my basement. And I share it with all the food storage and the furnace room. And it's only a half basement. So this section of the house, like this, it covers like from like my daughter's bedroom, the kitchen, and the living room. So this side of the house. Over, let me show you. See, we got like the heater vent. On the other side of that wall is a crawl space, which is dirt and dust and just, you know, spider webs and plumbing and stuff that all like deals, and it's all a crawl space over there. So it's like a half basement with 6-foot ceilings, low ceilings, and, you know, I make it work. So, and then I set up my nice little curtain because I like this one a lot better than I do the other ones that I was using. Alright. So what is it like being a sewing YouTuber? As well, does it meet your expectation? Is it how you thought it would be? Reaction from others? Well, I basically started doing my sewing YouTube basically to brag about what I was making. Because my family doesn't always want to hear what I'm making, you know, and I should post more. I really should. But then sometimes I think, well, why would people want to see me? Why would they want to hear what I have to say? Yeah. But I realize that I have some wonderful YouTube friends, and I really like the sewing community. And yes, I have posted other things other than sewing YouTube. I have posted things about like electrical, because I do my own electrical. Shh, don't tell anybody. And I did fix like a little Razor scooter. I needed to change the back tire, and I couldn't find a YouTube video on it. And I was like, well, let's go ahead and give this a try, and I'll just record it as I'm going, because I'm not going to do this a second time. So that's basically what I did. And it's gotten quite a decent amount of views. Even the electrical has gotten quite a few views. Then every once in a while, I like to read stories. And I read stories that my kids love to hear. And I said, you know what? I'm going to record it today, and then I'm going to post it on YouTube. Yeah. So I've done that too. And I've tried doing like little sew-alongs. Like if you go back to the very beginning, I guess like 2018 is when I really started my sewing YouTube. I do have some videos back in like 2011. And when my 11-year-old was like 1.5, 2 years old, because he's born in 2009. And so it was back then, and I did do a couple of videos back then that when he was a baby, we were at the library and he was twirling around, and my daughter was twirling around with them, and at that time, and I just thought it would be fun. Well, because I had an iPhone, and I was like, oh, this is a cool little feature. And I posted it to YouTube. I'm like, wow. And I really didn't do anything with it, you know. And then my little boy was eating dirt off of a shovel. And I posted that on YouTube, you know. And then he was playing the piano, and he loved to look at the innards of the piano. And he loved to have like the little opening open so you could see the innards, like as you're pressing on the keys. And I would like let it close, and he would cry, and then I would open it back up, and he would be all happy and start playing again. And then I would close it, and he would start to cry and start to throw a fit. And then I would open it, and he would start to be all happy again. Yeah. So yeah, I did do that, and those are just like some very beginning videos on my channel. And then I started with the sewing YouTube, just kind of showing what I was making at the time. And I was making pants for my kids, and I started my YouTube. I talked to my husband and my daughter, like, I could do that. And I was watching this channel Soulspire from YouTube, Andrea from Soulspire, and a lot of the YouTubers, like sewing YouTubers that do crafts and stuff, know about her. Andrea from Andrea Makes actually interviewed her on one of her vlog live post a couple weeks ago, and that was quite interesting. So yeah, I just kind of started it just because, and then there's been a couple people that I started watching, and then they just kind of stopped posting, and I got kind of sad. I was like, oh, where did they go? Oh, I miss them so much. And then there's been times where I'm like, well, do I even want to do this anymore? And I kind of got like down on myself and just thinking, and then I think about them, I'm like, but I have these people that, if, you know, I don't want to like stop and have them worry, you know, because you get kind of invested in your YouTube friends. And so, and I like to know what they're doing. I like to see their posts. Like Sherry from Granny Sewing Room, I love to see her post. and April from Sew April, and the other ones I'm trying to think. Well, Jen from Today in Jen's Sewing Room, and just these other ones. They're just really down to earth and just, they don't get all fancy and like too serious about their channel. They keep it easy going. And me, I try to keep things easy going. I don't want to get all serious. Not with this stuff. Life's too short for that. Okay, let's go on to question 4. Wow. Okay, so it says, describe your most memorable project. Like, as in like a big event, total fail, biggest success, etc. Basically, I've already gone into this. Like, what really got me back into sewing was sewing for my friend all those aprons. And then, like, doing for her Christmas, Thanksgiving gifts. Like, I made lots and lots of aprons. And, I had sewn some over the years between that, but not really. And really, this whole clothing thing came with my mom helping me. So I started out mostly doing quilts. And then I decided to do clothing. Yeah, and so what I'm wearing, I made. Okay. So, you know, I did have a real big fail the other day. Like, I made some overalls from, was it a Butterick pattern? I don't know. It was just one crazy pattern. I would have to do a lot of altering and like finagling with that pattern to even make it work. I don't know. It really needed some work. So, I don't know. They look like clown pants. Alright. So, number 5, it says, what is one quote or saying, piece of advice that you've gotten that resonates with your sewing or YouTube success? Well, I think really, for me, like seeing like the comments and the compliments, like going out and people saying, oh, I love what you're wearing. I'm like, oh, thank you so much. I made it. They're like, oh, you made that? Wow, I wish I could do that. You know, and I love those kind of compliments. And, you know, just that fun stuff. And it's like, just, like, keep trying. Just, like, continue to be creative. Just don't give up. Now, the best part about sewing for me, like, is sewing my own clothes. Well, and the joy of being able to sew something that my daughter will wear. Like my little 7-year-old, I'll make her something and she'll wear it. Like, so much. I love it. I love seeing her wear and get excited about the stuff I make her. Now my boys, they'll wear like the pants I make them and stuff. I did make my son like a little t-shirt like last year that he wore for a little bit but not too much. So, you know, but it is what it is. And like, I like to watch the construction of a garment come together. Like, so the other day, I guess it was maybe yesterday, like, I've been like kind of pattern cutting crazy. Fabric cutting, actually. So I had misplaced my overall pattern. Like, seriously, I had misplaced it. I think it's right here. So I went looking, and I looked through all my patterns, like my pattern cabinet, the box and bags of patterns I had. And then there was one other place I could look, and so I looked over here, because I had like a little like fabric tote bin type thing that I got from the dollar store. And I ended up having a couple of patterns in there that I just kind of put in there when I was cleaning up. And I happened to look through things, and I found my pattern, my most favorite pattern of all. And I did like a little dance. I was like, yes, 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 I found it. I was so excited. And then I go upstairs and I tell my husband and my daughter, and they're like, whatever. And so I'm down here and I'm like cleaning off my table, like putting stuff away and getting out fabrics and getting ready to cut out my pattern. And then I get out another pattern. Let me go ahead and grab that 1 second. Sorry about that. Okay, so I have this pattern. It's a McCall's 7551. And I've made this pattern before, but I've made it in a size medium. And I really like the pattern. And I thought, well, let me try to make it in the size small. Because I was going through my patterns and I found this one. I'm like, oh. And so this is like the second pattern I have, but the other one's a size medium and this one's a size small. Like, oh, well, let me go ahead and try making it in the smaller size and see if it'll fit. I'm hoping it will fit, because that would be a bummer if it doesn't. And then I do have this one, which I knew where this one was. And I've been wanting to cut up fabric to make this one again. It's the 8855 Simplicity. And I'm just making view A. So that view there, like that. And I had a couple pieces of fabric that I wanted to make up in that. So I'm getting out these fabrics, just kind of going crazy. And I'm cutting out these patterns, like, so I get fabrics and I cut this one out. And so I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3. So I have at least 3 pairs already cut out for this. Yeah. I have 1 pair cut out for this, like one type of fabric. And then I have like 3 different fabrics cut out for this one. Yeah. I'm making myself a whole new overall wardrobe. Well, because I do have like 4 pairs of overalls that I need to like kind of cycle out of my collection. And yeah. So before I cycle those out, I will be doing a video showing like the different overalls that I do have. But I like seeing things come together, just like, and just cutting it out is not my favorite, but that's part of the process. So just like cutting them out, I like cut out a whole bunch so that I can work on making them all, and it just makes me happy. Sewing makes me happy. It's what I do. Alright, well, I better end this. I'm going on like 50 minutes here, and I can't cut any of it out. Well, I could, but I'm not going to. So obviously I saw my daughter. I tried to do this in one take. I tried doing the 5 questions one take. So I made it all the way through this, but I had to start it over a couple of times because first time my daughter called but I was just on question 1. So I just barely got into it and she calls. So I had to start over. Second take, like second time around, I was doing it and my son comes down and starts complaining about something. And I was still in my question 1 phase, and I'm like, great. So I'm like, okay, well, let's try this again. So I've made it through this whole time, and my daughter came down and interrupted, but she's just gonna have to stay in it. I'm sorry. Alright, well, I hope you guys all have a wonderful day. Thank you so much, Lindsay from Inside the Hem, for coming up with this hashtag, 5 questions, 1 take. It has been an absolute blast. If you want to learn a little bit more about me, there is a seamstress tag that we did a couple months ago. I'm just going to go ahead and it's going to just show up in this video, just like right on the side. So if you wanted to go ahead and check that out, if you like this kind of stuff, well, this is me. Alright, well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Talk to you later. Bye.